Today we're going to talk about how people become derivative citizens of the United States. And first of all, let me back it up and tell you how people become citizens altogether. First of all, if you're born in the United States under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, you are a U.S. citizen. And when you say the U.S., it can be the 50 states. Remember, it can also be Puerto Rico, Guam, or the Virgin Islands. Okay. Secondly, you can go through the green card process and then naturalize. That's another way to become a citizen of the U.S. And then finally, derivative citizens are people who become citizens because their parents or grandparents or somebody in their lineage became a citizen of the United States when they were a certain age. They can either get citizenship at birth, and we call that acquiring U.S. citizenship at birth, or while they're a minor, which is deriving U.S. citizenship before a certain age. Now, the problem with this, I used to be a derivative citizenship attorney for the Immigration Service back in the 70s, and it's very hard to find the laws because the laws were changed in 1934, they were changed in 1940, they were changed in 1952, and on and on and on, and it's kind of hard to find the old laws. In some of the old laws, there was something called a retention requirement, that if the derivative citizen didn't come to the United States before a certain birth date, they'd lose their citizenship. But now the retention requirements have been taken out of the law retroactively, so somebody who was told that they lost their citizenship may want to reapply because they may not have actually lost their citizenship. There's 4 citizen charts, very complicated. They are all posted under the citizenship page on our website where it says citizenship through parents. Take a look at those charts. That's the best way to figure out these old laws. How does it work? Let me give you an example. We call this the Citizenship Waltz. Number 1, when were you born? That determines whether it's the 34 law, the 40 law, the 52 law, the 86 law, which law applies. Then secondly, were both your parents U.S. citizens? If they were, then you're probably a citizen. Very, very few people don't acquire citizenship if both their parents were citizens at the time of their birth. But the trickier cases that we specialize in is what happens when only one of your parents was a citizen. Usually that parent has to reside in the United States or be physically present in the United States for a certain amount of time before your birth and a certain amount of time after their 14th or 16th birthday. I can't be more specific than that. You'll have to look at the charts. And then there was that old retention clause that's no longer part of the law. Let me tell you a couple of stories these are real cases that we've had, and they will kind of illustrate some of the problems in derivative citizenship law. Let me tell you about Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia was a fellow whose mother walked into my office about 10 years ago, and she said, "My son is serving time in a state prison in Nevada. He's had 2 armed robbery convictions. And we want to see whether there's anything we can do to save him from being deported back to our country." She said, "I have seen 53 lawyers. I've been keeping count, and they all say, he's an aggravated felon, there's nothing we can do." But after a little bit of questioning, I found out that both she and her husband had naturalized before their child's 16th birthday, and their child had a green card. So he was a citizen. And one day, I think the immigration court, I don't know, somebody got off schedule because I was never notified in advance. I got a phone call and my receptionist said, "It's an immigration judge from Nevada." And I picked up the phone and he says, "We are now conducting the hearing of Mr. Garcia, and he's an aggravated felon, so counsel, you would not seem to have any defense here." And I said, "Your Honor, as far as I know, the judges haven't been given any power to deport U.S. citizens." And then we got into a conversation, and 3 days later the proceedings were terminated. Mr. Garcia became a citizen, and I'm happy to tell you that he contacted me a few years ago, and he totally cleaned up his act. He has a very responsible executive job and has never been in trouble with the law again. But he would have easily been deported. Let me tell you another story about a Canadian fellow named Brian Olsen. This was a little bit unusual, very unusual in fact, because Brian's parents were born in Canada, Brian was born in Canada, and even his grandparents on both sides were born in Canada. But his great-grandparents were born in the United States, and his parents and his grandparents were all born before the 1934 law went into effect. So we were able to establish a chain of evidence showing that the citizenship on both sides went from the great-grandparents to the grandparents to the parents and then down to Brian. The first document we had was dated in 1833. We proved he was a citizen. He wanted to be able to get his wife a green card, and he was able to get her a green card within a few months because of that. What's the attorney's role in something like this? Well, first of all, I've noticed that a lot of attorneys, if you look at their online pages where they ask you, would you like to make an appointment with me, fill out what your problem is, I don't think that's enough. If you notice our application, and I'm sure there's many other attorneys who have applications like ours, we ask a lot of questions, including where were your parents born and so on. And always question people about, do you have a relative who was born in the U.S. or became a U.S. citizen, your parent, your grandparents, whatever? Then when they establish that this is true, to take the derivative charts and find out whether you are a U.S. citizen, or if not, whether maybe your grandparents passed U.S. citizenship to your father or mother so that they can apply for you. Now there are two sections of law that are online on the Immigration and Naturalization, I'm still calling it the old name, it's the USCIS.gov page. Look under section 320 and 322 of the law. That is the current law, and see whether you qualify automatically or by naturalization to be a U.S. citizen. And if not, look at those derivative charts. And good luck. You may find that you don't even need to get a green card because you're already a U.S. citizen.